And I want to begin by putting the statement out there. Are you the one? Are you the one for your family? Now, that's not a overly broad statement. Let me narrow down the focus a bit so you can understand where I'm going. Every family in every generation, they have the one. They have the person that steps up out of the mud and they change the trajectory of the family. If the family's going crooked, they make the family go straight. If the family's going down, they force the family up by sheer will. If the family's broke, somehow they change the fortunes of the family by becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. Whatever the case may be, there's a divide. There's a divide between the greedy and the selfish people, and then there's the me group, the group with meism. You know, everything has to be done for them. Everything must be done for them. If something happens to them, they're a victim. And generally, that's how families are divided. And then there's that gap. There's that gap in the middle. Well, in my case, my cousin, he was the one. I had a moment to ponder and reflect on his life and his impact that he had on our family. And I'm not just being sorrowful and dedicating this to him just because. I'm not doing that. I'm stating a fact. He was the one. He didn't necessarily provide a financial impact that changed the trajectory of our family. He wasn't a millionaire, billionaire, or even a thousandaire. It wasn't money that changed our family. He stood in the gap. He stood in the gap between the selfish people and the me people in our family. And he filled that gap with kindness. He shoveled and poured into that gap every day. Kindness, consideration, and a whole lot of giving. Probably thinking I'm talking about a 90-something-year-old man, but no, he was 57 years old when he passed. The majority of his adult life, and even parts of his younger life, he spent giving. A story to illustrate that is how he impacted my life. My particular family, we weren't well off. We survived. We ate. We had a roof over our head. We had transportation. We had all of the basic needs covered. When I entered sports, you gotta have shoes, socks, jocks, equipment. My old man, he wasn't necessarily a fan of spending extra money on extracurricular things. And so I played on a football team that played at a stadium with turf. And I needed turf shoes, but he was dead set against buying me turf shoes. So one day I rode my bike to my cousin's house and I'm just complaining, oh man, my old man, he won't give me those shoes, blah, blah, blah. I think they're only $25, but he won't do it. And my cousin, he was just standing there listening. And I was an excitable kid, and he just finally stopped me and said, hey, Chico. And I stopped. And I said, yeah. And he goes, do you need turf shoes? I said, yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you, but I don't know where I'm going to get them from. And I went back into my excited state, and he shouted my name. He said, Chico. And I stopped. And he said, answer the question. Do you need turf shoes? I said, yes. My cousin was 2 years older than me, and he played at a different high school. But on Friday nights, the schedule was like this. Most of the schools played the early games, and there were a few teams like mine that always played the night games. My cousin happened to be on the team that played the early game, and he said to me, after my game, I'll meet you in the bottom of the stadium as my team is loading out and your team is loading in. We'll exchange shoes. You give me your sneakers, and I'll give you my turf shoes. I said, okay, cousin. So that Friday night came along, and we were loading in the stadium, they were loading out, and he pushed me to the side and said, hey, here you go. Put these on. Give me your shoes. I grabbed those shoes. I laced them up. He was loading out. And as I was trying to get back in line, I was hit by something. Something resonated in my spirit. It was like a thump or something in my soul, and I looked up the ramp at my cousin, and I just was like, man, he just did this. And I'm not even playing. I'm just a pup on the team. I'm not really playing, but he did that. He was a senior. I was a sophomore. He graduated, and at some point over the summer, I went by to hang out with him before he left for college, and he gave me those turf shoes. I played the next 2 years in those shoes. I have a picture on my wall here at my house, and it's of me in the stadium wearing those shoes. It used to be just a picture, but now it symbolizes something that I can't even articulate. I can't even put it into words. You know, when I walk by that picture in my hallway, I get the chills. But that's who he was. And there's countless stories of him just giving. It didn't matter what time of the day, it didn't matter what day of the week. It never mattered. If you called him, he was going to give. I can also remember, my dad, he was born and raised in East Texas before he moved us to Oregon. And he prided himself on cooking a good barbecue meal. Barbecue ribs was a specialty. He had a meat fall off the rib bone recipe that, man, everybody in our family, we just couldn't wait for the next family reunion because Slim was gonna give us that special meat recipe that we all desired. Well, as time went on, over a 20+ year period, my dad got older and he got tired. And he looked around our family. Now, mind you that in our family there's myself and my older brother, so he had 2 biological sons. But we were always very, very close with our other cousins. And my dad, he scanned around, he would ask questions, and then he landed on that one cousin. He skipped over me, he skipped over my brother, he skipped over 9, 10, 11 other capable men who could take on his recipe and honor him. But he picked the one. And when I had the opportunity to ask my dad, I said, why did you pick him? He said, because I knew that he was going to take care of my recipe, and he would make sure that the family gets it every year. Even well after I'm gone, he's going to make sure that this recipe is passed down to the right people. But while it's in his hands, he's going to give it to you. And boy, he sure did. Man, he took my dad's recipe, and the meat fell off the bone. It was just like eating a piece of silk. Man, it just melted in your mouth. It just laid right on your tongue. And my cousin, he fed our family at every reunion, Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, whatever the occasion. But as he entered his 50s, he got tired, and he scanned around the family just like my dad did years earlier. And he never could find anybody with the giving spirit. He asked around, he even asked me. But I would be the first to tell you that I'm a part of that selfish camp, or the meism camp. I'm somewhere on the far ends of the spectrum. Although I try. I've committed the rest of my life to try to be better, to try and self-develop. But he passed over me, and he passed over everybody else in the family, and he finally just said, I can't do it anymore. There's nobody here that's capable, or even no one even wants the job. It's kind of the burden a giver walks around with. Who else is like them? Not many. And that's really the reason for this message today. Who are you? And if the Grim Reaper came down tomorrow and escorted you home, would people say he was the one? Would people say she was the one? It's a question that we all have to ponder. What's our impact on our family? Are we changing the trajectory for the better? Or are we in one of those selfish camps making the family worse? Answer that question when you get up tomorrow morning, or even today. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I the one? Am I the one? Hopefully you'll come up with an answer that you'll be satisfied with. But until then, thank you for listening. My name is Chico Warren, and this message is dedicated to my late cousin, Mr. Terry Howard.